You are only 17, and the ropes around your wrists burn with every movement. The air inside the cell is thick and foul, not just damstone, but decay, the kind left behind by broken bodies and forgotten souls. In less than 2 years, you achieve what crowned rulers never could. You awaken the people. You shattered siege lines that veteran generals insisted were unbreakable. Across England, commanders bolt upright from their sleep, your name still haunting them. And yet, they captured you. Your hair has been shaved away. The cold gnaws at your exposed scalp, sharp and relentless, like 1,000 tiny blades. They march you through public humiliation, turning shame into spectacle. Piece by piece, they erased who you were. Your armor is gone. Your authority is gone. Even your voice has been reduced to nothing. When you speak now, no one listens. The guards don't flinch. You are no longer a threat, only a prisoner. Today, they place a document before you. The words swim together, but their intent is unmistakable. You must deny everything. Your saints were lies. The voices, evil. The visions that altered the course of history, mere fantasies. The divine mission you believed guided you, a delusion. And then comes the garment. Tight, suffocating. Designed not just to restrain your body, but to humiliate it. A uniform meant to erase the warrior and replace her with an object. You thought signing would save your life. In truth, you signed your own trap. The cruelty was precise. The system was engineered so that you would condemn yourself willingly, believing it was your only escape. This is the story of how Joan of Arc was destroyed, not by brute force, but by law. How the most sophisticated legal machinery of the medieval world was carefully aimed at a teenage girl who never realized she had entered a prison with no doors. This is not simply a tale of trial. It is a systematic dismantling of a human being, using legality as a weapon. What happened in 1431 did not remain in history. It repeats itself even now. If you believe the past should be told truthfully, stay with me, because this is a story powerful forces tried to erase. Let's return to the year 1429. For more than a century, the 100 Years' War has drained the country of blood and belief. 100 years, long enough that no one alive remembers peace. English forces advanced steadily, fortress by fortress, province by province. The south is under English control. The north is under English control. Even the coastline is no longer French in anything but name. Charles, the heir to the throne, sits in Bourges, uncrowned, powerless, watching his kingdom collapse. Gold is gone. Armies are exhausted. Worse than that, faith has evaporated. Commanders no longer believe victory is possible. Nobles quietly bargain with the enemy. Parents raise their children believing a French triumph is nothing more than a comforting myth. This is no longer a war. It is an occupation pretending to be one. Then, in January of 1429, something impossible happens. A teenage girl arrives at court. She comes from Domremy, a village so small that most educated men in France wouldn't know where to find it. She cannot read. She has never trained as a soldier. She has never carried a sword into battle. Her name is Joan, and she tells Charles something no one else dares to say. God has sent her to save France. Most dismiss her instantly. Some laugh. Others call her mad. But Joan is not insane. She is far more unsettling than that. She is absolutely certain. She tells the Dauphin exactly what his people are desperate to hear, that God has not abandoned France, that the English will be driven out, that suffering has meaning, against all logic, against every custom of medieval power. Charles allows her to ride with his army. What happens next violates every rule of warfare they know. Joan reaches Orleans, the most critical English stronghold still standing. The English garrison is small but battle-hardened. 5,000 experienced soldiers who have held the city for months. The French have thrown everything they have at those walls and failed every time. Then Joan arrives and something changes. Not tactics, not weapons, belief. When she rides toward the walls, The soldiers follow her, not because she commands them, but because her presence carries a promise. This time will be different. And somehow, impossibly it is, Orleans falls. The English commander is captured. The impossible becomes real. Victory follows victory. Momentum spreads like fire. In May of 1429, Joan stands beside Charles as he is crowned King of France at Reims. She wears armor. The cathedral erupts. This is no longer just a coronation. It is confirmation. A 17-year-old peasant girl has reshaped reality itself. She has done what generations of kings could not. She has given France something everyone believed was gone forever: hope. By the summer of 1429, Joan of Arc is the most powerful figure in France. Not officially, not on paper, but in truth. Charles wears a crown, but everyone understands the source of his legitimacy. The girl who hears saints is the reason France still stands. The English understand this too, and they realize something critical. They cannot defeat her on the battlefield. She has survived arrows, sieges, wounds, and impossible odds. Whether blessed or simply impossibly fortunate, she is untouchable in war. So they choose another battlefield, a courtroom, because there's one place where Joan's divine mission offers no protection: inside theology, law, and procedure. In May of 1430, Joan is leading troops near Compiègne, close to the border between French and Burgundian territory. The Burgundians are technically French nobles, but since the Treaty of Troyes, they have allied themselves with England. They play both sides. Everyone knows it. During a skirmish, a Burgundian soldier grabs her. One moment, she is urging men forward on horseback. The next, she is dragged down, surrounded, captured. Normally, this would end in ransom or exchange. Joan is valuable, too valuable, but that is not what happens. The Burgundians sell her to the English for 10,000 livres, a staggering sum, enough to support a family for generations. This is not a ransom. It is a purchase. The English are not buying a prisoner. They are buying an icon that must be erased. By now, Joan is no longer dangerous because she can fight. She is dangerous because she proves something: that God favors France, that occupation can be broken. If they can destroy her credibility, if they can label her voices demonic, her visions delusional, her faith heresy, then they won't just defeat a soldier. They will annihilate an idea, and they will force her to participate in her own destruction. In January of 1431, Joan is brought to Rouen, the English stronghold and administrative center of occupied France. What follows is presented as a religious inquiry. Bishops, theologians, canon law, scripture. On the surface, it appears legitimate. In reality, it is carefully staged. Every detail is controlled. Joan is kept in chains, not in a convent under the care of nuns, as church law requires, but inside a military fortress. 5 English soldiers guard her day and night. The cage is closed, and the trial is about to begin. The courtroom is never neutral. Every judge seated before Joan is loyal to England. The prosecutor coordinates openly with English commanders. The men assigned to defend her are not defenders at all. They are judges wearing the disguise of advocates, quietly undermining her at every turn. From the first session, the objective is unmistakable. This is not a search for truth. It is a demolition. There will be 70 interrogations, 70 hearings stretched across months, each one designed to grind her down. The sharpest theological minds in France versus a 19-year-old girl who cannot read, cannot write, and has no legal counsel, no advisor, no ally. She stands alone. And yet, astonishingly, she does not collapse. She will never convince these judges. That outcome was decided long before she entered the room. But she begins winning somewhere else, in logic, clarity, and restraint. They ask her whether she knows she is in God's grace, a classic theological trap. Say yes, and she commits heresy. Say no, and she condemns herself. Her answer is flawless. If I am not, may God place me there. If I am, may God keep me there. The judges pause. There is no opening to exploit. They ask whether God hates the English. She replies calmly, I know nothing of God's love or hatred for them, but I do know this. They will be driven from France, except those who die here. It is not defiant. It is not reckless. It is exact. Again and again, she outmaneuvers men who have spent decades inside universities. She turns scripture back on theologians. Every trap they set, she sidesteps. So they escalate. They bring her to the torture chamber. They show her the instruments, the rack, the strappado, devices meant to dislocate joints while keeping the victim alive long enough to suffer. She looks at them and says, even if you tear my body apart and separate my soul from it, I will tell you nothing more. Then she delivers the sentence that changes everything. And if I did say anything, I would later say you forced me to say it. She has just destroyed the value of torture itself. Any confession extracted would be legally worthless. She understands inquisitorial law better than the men judging her. The judges retreat. Pain will not silence her. Theology will not break her. So they change tactics. They will use fear. They will use exhaustion. They will let time do the work. She is going to die, but not yet. First, she must sign something. May 24th, 1431. You are pulled from your cell one final time. You do not know it is the last, but your body senses it. There is a weight in the guards' hands, a finality in their grip. You are taken to the cemetery of St. Ouen, a public square. The crowd is massive. Hundreds, perhaps thousands. Word is spread. This is the day Joan burns. A scaffold rises above the square. Two preachers stand atop it. Bishop Pierre Cauchon is present, the architect of the trial, pro-English, ambitious. For years, he has coveted the archbishopric of Rouen. The English have made the deal clear. Condemn Joan and the title is yours. He is ready to deliver the final sermon, to declare you a heretic, a witch, a threat to Christendom. But first, they offer you mercy. A notary steps forward with a document. A shortened version is read aloud. You must deny your visions. Admit your voices were demonic. Agree to submit fully to the church and wear women's clothing. In return, your life will be spared. Prison instead of fire. The executioner stands nearby. You can see the wood stacked high, dry, waiting. You are terrified. You are exhausted. You've been chained for months. Interrogated 70 times. Your body is failing. Your mind is fraying. And so you sign. Years later, during Joan's rehabilitation trial, witnesses would testify that the document she marked was only a few lines long. They would claim the full confession preserved in the record was altered, expanded, rewritten, made far more damning than what she agreed to. An ecclesiastical sleight of hand. But in truth, the wording never mattered. The trap was the signature itself. Joan is escorted back to prison. The crowd murmurs. Some are relieved, others disappointed. The spectacle is over, but not as expected. Cauchon delivers a sermon anyway, denouncing her even after her surrender. The ritual must be completed. Joan believes she has saved her life. She believed the promise was real. But her captors never intended to honor it, because inquisitorial law contains a loophole without mercy. A confessed heretic may live, imprisoned, broken, but alive. But a relapsed heretic, one who recants and then returns to heresy, faces automatic execution. No retrial. No appeal. Relapse itself is the sentence. The cage is still closed. And now it is perfectly prepared. The English and Bishop Cauchon needed Joan eliminated, but not just executed. They needed her destroyed correctly. If they killed her under the original charges, the bargain would be exposed as a lie. It would look like bad faith. Worse, it would reveal the legal process itself as corrupt. Mercy had been promised. If she died anyway, the law would stand exposed as a fraud. But a relapsed heretic? That was different. If Joan returned to her so-called heresies after signing her confession, Then responsibility shifted entirely onto her. The court could claim perfection. Mercy had been offered. She had rejected it. The system would appear flawless. So they constructed the trap with care. They returned her to the same military prison. She remained in chains. 5 English soldiers guarded her at all hours. Her head was shaved again, humiliation layered upon humiliation. Then they forced her back into the dress she had been told would save her life. But that dress was never protection. It was exposure. For months, Joan's men's clothing had served a very real purpose. During the trial, she explained that she tied her tunic and trousers together with dozens of cords, fastening them so tightly they could not be removed without destroying the garment itself. It was not symbolism. It was defense against assault, against hands in the dark, against rooms filled with hostile men. Years later, witnesses would confirm what she already knew. English lords had attempted to rape her in her cell. Those cords were the only thing that stopped them. Now, in a dress, she had no barrier at all. The taunts began, then the threats, then the promises that if she did not comply, worse would come. For days passed. Then came the final move. According to testimony given decades later, one night the guards entered her cell and removed the dress entirely. They left her nothing but the men's clothing tossed onto the floor. They forced her into an impasse. Bleed choice: stand naked and defenseless before armed men, or put on forbidden clothes. She chose survival. On May 28th, just 4 days after signing her confession, the judges entered her cell. Bishop Cauchon led them. They found Joan wearing men's clothing. She told them exactly why. She explained that the dress had been taken, that she could not protect herself among soldiers while wearing it, that she had no other option. Then she said something else, something fatal. She told them her voices had returned, that Saints Michael and Catherine had spoken to her again, that they had condemned her for signing the confession, that she should never have denied them. In that moment, the trap closed. By her own words, spoken openly, recorded officially, she had violated confession and affirmed the return of her visions. Relapse. The verdict was immediate, unanimous. No debate, no delay. She was declared a relapsed heretic. The promise of life had lasted 4 days. And the most horrifying truth is this: Joan did not understand what happened. She believed she was explaining herself. She believed she was telling the truth. She never realized she was writing her own death sentence into the record. The judges had engineered every detail. They removed the dress knowing she would reach for safety. They left her alone with soldiers, knowing fear would do the rest. They relied on her honesty, and they turned it into a weapon. No torture was needed. No theological victory was required. Only the correct conditions, and a human being tried to survive. May 30th, 1431. 800 English soldiers escorted Joan to the old market square in Rouen. The stake was already prepared. The wood was dry, carefully chosen to burn fast. They wanted the end to come quickly. They stripped her, dressed her in a white smock, placed a paper cap on her head marked heretic, relapsed, apostate. She asked for a crucifix. A friar tied 2 sticks together with twine. It was crude, but it was Christ, and it was enough. They bound her tightly to the stake. No movement, no escape. The fire was lit. Witnesses later said she did not scream. She did not curse England. She did not rage at God. Instead, she called out to Bishop Cauchon, "Through you I die." Not an accusation. A fact. She asked that the crucifix be held high, so it would be the last thing she saw. As smoke filled the square and flames climbed, her voice could still be heard. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. Again and again. Not once. Over and over. The name spoken like prayer, like truth, like the final thing untouched by law or fire. Thousands watched. French citizens she had saved. English soldiers who had condemned her. Priests who had remained silent. And then something unexpected happened. An English secretary, part of the trial itself, watched her burn and cried out in the marketplace, "We are lost. We have burned a saint." The English tried to erase her completely. After her body blackened, they exposed the remains to prove she was dead. Then they burned what was left again and again until only ash remained. That ash was gathered and thrown into the river. No relics, no bones, no memory, total erasure. They failed. 25 years later, Joan's family demanded a retrial. The Pope approved it. More than 100 witnesses testified. Judges, priests, guards, soldiers, notaries. Under oath, they admitted the truth. The confession had been altered. The imprisonment violated church law. The guards were abusive. The dress had been taken deliberately. The entire trial was corrupt. The verdict was overturned in full. Joan's name was cleared. Her honor restored. Within a century, she was canonized. The English had burned a saint, and history confirmed it. But here's the part that should unsettle you. Joan did not die because she lost faith. She did not die because she broke spiritually. She died because she trusted the law. She believed rules existed to protect her. She believed a signature could spare her life. That belief was a trap. The system that killed her was not broken. It was perfectly engineered. When theology failed, it adapted. When argument failed, it waited. It created a world where fear became evidence, survival became guilt, and honesty became a death sentence. And that is where this stops being medieval history, because the structure still exists. Different courts, different language, different punishments. Same machine. Joan of Arc did not die because she was weak. She died because she was human, and the law was designed to use that against her. That is the echo of 1431, and it should frighten you. You have just heard a truth history tried to erase, the story of a young girl who saved a nation, only to be destroyed by the very system that claimed to serve justice and truth. This is not just a story about the past. It is a warning. If you believe history matters, if you believe these stories deserve to be told completely and honestly, without comfort, without distortion, then subscribe to Sinister Empires, because truth does not disappear. It is only buried.